What would you do if the family you built your life around, the children you raised as your own, looked you in the eye and told you that you meant nothing, that you were just a placeholder, a convenience? Would you beg? Would you fight? Or would you do what I did and give them exactly what they asked for? Before we get into this story, which is one of the most painful but ultimately freeing chapters of my life, I need to ask you a favor. If you've ever felt taken for granted, or if you believe in standing up for your own worth, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this story needs to be seen. And comment down below with where you're watching from and how old you are. I read every single one. Now, let's get into it. My name is Mark. I'm a contractor. I work with my hands. I trust what I can see and touch, and I believe a man's word is his bond. For over a decade, I built my life on that code. And for over a decade, I thought I was building a family. I met Sarah 9 years ago. She was a widow, a ghost of a woman living in a house that echoed with a silence she couldn't bear. Her husband, a firefighter, had died a hero's death in a warehouse blaze downtown. He left behind a 4-year-old boy, Liam, and a baby girl, Chloe, who would never know her father's voice. He left behind a mortgage, a pile of medical bills, and a life cut in half. I didn't ride in on a white horse. I was just the guy fixing their porch steps. I saw her trying to hold it all together, the crying baby, the restless boy, the leaky faucet she couldn't afford to fix. I saw the exhaustion etched into her face, but I also saw a fierce, stubborn strength. I wasn't looking to be a savior. I was just a man who saw a woman he admired and children who needed a steady hand. So I stayed. Slowly, carefully, I became part of their world. I wasn't just mom's boyfriend. I was the one who taught Liam how to throw a spiral football in the backyard. I was the one who sat through countless episodes of cartoon princesses with Chloe asleep on my lap. I was the one who patched scraped knees, packed lunches, and navigated the chaotic jungle of parent-teacher conferences. They started calling me Dad. Not Mark, Dad. And I believed it. I poured everything I had into that title. My time, my money, my soul. I worked double shifts, took out-of-town jobs, anything to make sure they had everything. Private school, the latest gadgets, family vacations to the beach. I didn't just pay the bills, I was present. I was the architect of Saturday morning pancake breakfasts and the late night monster under the bed exterminator. I remember the feeling of Chloe's small hand in mine as we crossed the street. The weight of it. The absolute trust. I remember teaching Liam how to drive in an empty parking lot. My foot pressing an imaginary brake on the passenger side. Our house wasn't just a building, it was a living thing. Warm and noisy and full of life. Or so I thought. I was building my dream on what I now know was a foundation of sand. The change didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, insidious leak. A drip, drip, drip of disrespect that I kept dismissing. It started with Liam. The sweet boy who used to look at me like I hung the moon became a sullen, eye-rolling teenager. Requests to take out the trash were met with heavy sighs. Curfews became suggestions he felt free to ignore. I'd hear him on the phone with his friends, his voice a low mutter. Yeah, whatever. He's not my real dad. What's he gonna do? I'd let it slide. He's a teenager, I told myself. He's finding his way. It's a phase. Chloe followed suit. The adoring little girl became a master of passive aggression. She'd ask her mom for money right in front of me, bypassing me completely. If I bought her a gift, there was no spark of joy, just a clinical assessment of its brand and value. "Thanks," she'd say, her tone flat, already turning away. And Sarah? Sarah just faded into the background. She'd be scrolling on her phone, pretending not to hear the sharp tone they used with me. If I tried to talk to her about it after, she'd sigh that tired sigh. "Mark, don't make a big deal out of it. They're just kids. It's a difficult age." But it wasn't about their age. It was about a permission slip they'd been given, signed by their mother's silence. I was the provider, the handyman, the chauffeur, but I was not their father, and they were beginning to make sure I never forgot it. The warmth in the house began to cool. The laughter felt forced, reserved for when I wasn't in the room. I was becoming a guest in my own home, tolerated but not welcomed. The bomb finally went off on a rainy Tuesday night. Liam had been out past midnight again. No call, no text. The rain was sheeting down, and I'd been pacing for an hour, my worry curdling into anger. I heard his key in the lock just after 1 a.m. He shuffled in, soaked, reeking of cheap weed and rebellion. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice low, straining against the urge to shout. He didn't even look at me, heading straight for the fridge. "Out? Relax, dude, I'm fine. The rule is midnight, and you call if you're late. That's not a request, Liam." He slammed the fridge door shut and finally turned to me. And the look in his eyes, it wasn't anger. It was pure, undiluted contempt. "Your rules?" he sneered. "You're not my dad, man. You don't get to make rules for me. You're just the guy who pays the mortgage." The words hung in the air, toxic and sharp. I felt them physically, like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. And then, from the hallway shadows, Chloe's voice, cold and clear. "Yeah, Mom only married you because she was broke. We all know it." I turned slowly. Sarah was standing at the top of the stairs. She'd heard everything. She met my eyes for a split second, and in that moment I saw it. Not shock, not outrage, just a weary resignation. She didn't say a word. She just turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. That was it. The click. The final, irrevocable severing of the cord. In that silence, something inside me broke. But it wasn't a messy break. It was a clean, cold, surgical snap. The love, the hope, the desperate need for their approval, it just shut off, like a switch had been flipped. The pain was immediately replaced by a chilling, absolute clarity. They were right. I wasn't their father. And from that moment on, I would stop trying to be. The next morning, I woke a different man. The weight was gone. In its place was a vast, empty calm. I went through my routine, but I was a ghost in the machine. I made coffee, only for myself. I didn't ask about their day. I didn't remind Liam about his dentist appointment. I didn't offer Chloe a ride to her friend's house. The first test came that afternoon. Chloe, all faux panic, ran into the kitchen. "Oh my God, I left my project at Jess's house. It's due first period. Dad, can you please drive me to get it?" She used the word, Dad. It was a tool, a key she thought she could still use to unlock my compliance. I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I said, my voice even. "You're resourceful." The look of shock on her face was almost comical. The stammering, the attempts to guilt trip me. I just walked away. Liam tried next, a demand for cash for a school trip, a trip I knew for a fact didn't exist. Ask your mother, I said, not looking up from my newspaper. But you always just transfer it, he protested, his voice rising. Not anymore, I said. The finality in my tone silenced him. Sarah attempted an intervention a week later. Mark, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. We're a family. You can't just check out. I looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time since that night. You told me what I was to this family, Sarah. All of you did. I'm just accepting the job description. Provider? ATM? Handyman? That position has been terminated, effective immediately. The cold reality began to seep into the house, frost creeping across a window pane. The spontaneous pizza night stopped. The cupboards held basics, not favorites. The Wi-Fi got cut off because I stopped paying the bill that was in my name. The car Chloe used started making a funny noise. I didn't look at it. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I just stopped. I was a tenant, a quiet, self-sufficient roommate who paid his share of the rent and nothing more. The emotional and financial infrastructure I had provided for a decade collapsed overnight. And the silence that replaced it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, anxious, and full of unspoken blame directed at each other, not me. I became an observer of their unraveling. I saw Liam's bravado crack when he couldn't afford to go to a concert with his friends. I saw Chloe's social life wither without a funded shopping budget. I saw the exhaustion on Sarah's face as she tried to juggle the life I had previously managed for her. They had wanted me to be a ghost, so I gave them a haunting. The climax came during a parent-principal meeting. Liam had been caught cheating, a major incident. In the past, I'd suited up, gone to the school and charmed, reasoned, or donated my way into a solution. I was the fixer. Sarah went alone this time. She came back looking shattered. The school wasn't as accommodating to a flustered mother as they were to a confident, well-dressed father who also happened to be on the Booster Club's donor list. That night, the dam broke. I was reading in the living room when the argument erupted in the kitchen. "I can't do this alone, Liam," Sarah cried, her voice frayed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "So get him to fix it," Liam shouted back. "That's his job." "He won't. Don't you get it? He's done." There was a crashing sound, a plate shattering on the floor. "Then why did you marry him?" Liam screamed, his voice raw with a truth he'd always known. "You told us he was just here to help. You said we just had to be nice to him until we didn't need him anymore." The silence that followed was louder than the scream. I didn't move. I just let the words hang there, confirming everything I'd known in my gut. Sarah finally came to me, her eyes red-rimmed. "Mark, he didn't mean that. He's just upset. You need to help. You're the adult here." I closed my book. "No, Sarah, he meant it, and he learned it from you. I'm not the adult. I'm the resource, and this resource is depleted." It was over. The charade was completely, utterly finished. That night, in the silence of my room, I didn't feel anger. I felt purpose. It was time to stop withdrawing and start building my escape. I became a strategist. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about logistics. I met with a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Shaw. "Emotional and financial exploitation," she said, reviewing my meticulous notes, bank statements showing transfers for things far beyond necessities, transcripts of text messages where I was only contacted for money, a log of the derogatory comments. We can also pursue damages for the intentional infliction of emotional distress. The fact that you are not their biological father simplifies the financial separation. You have no legal obligation to them. It was a brutal, clinical assessment, and it was exactly what I needed. While they were still reeling from my emotional withdrawal, I was executing a legal and financial siege. I quietly opened a new bank account and rerouted my paychecks. I gathered every document, took photos of every valuable item I had purchased that I intended to keep. I found a small, furnished apartment across town and paid the first 3 months' rent in cash. My actions were silent, precise, and utterly merciless. I was deconstructing the life I had built, brick by brick, and they were too busy squabbling over the dwindling Wi-Fi signal to notice. The final move was a masterpiece of quiet finality. On a Monday morning, I placed a single envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was not a letter, but a packet. The first page was the filed petition for divorce. Behind it were itemized lists, one of assets, one of debts, one of monthly expenses that would now be solely hers. Paper-clipped to the back was a printout of the first page of the lease for my new apartment. I didn't say goodbye. I just left for work as usual. I knew the detonation would happen around 4:05 p.m. when Liam and Chloe got home from school and Sarah would have to explain the packet on the table. My phone exploded at 4:07 p.m. A torrent of texts from Sarah. "How dare you? You can't do this. We're a family." From Liam. "What the F is this? You're actually leaving?" From Chloe. "Dad, please call me. Mom's freaking out." I didn't respond. I powered down my phone, went to my new empty apartment, and slept for 12 hours straight, the deepest, most peaceful sleep I'd had in years. The divorce proceedings were a formality. Evelyn was a pit bull. Sarah, unprepared and financially desperate, had no leverage. The house, which was in my name from before the marriage, remained mine. She was awarded nothing. No alimony, no claim to my future earnings. The kids were hers, legally and financially. I heard through the grapevine, mutual friends who were horrified by the whole thing, what happened after. They had to move into a small apartment. Liam dropped out of his expensive private school. Chloe's Instagram, once a curated gallery of designer outfits and beach trips, went dark. The messages shifted tone. The anger gave way to desperation. Then, finally, to something that almost sounded like regret. "Chloe, hey, I know things are weird, but I miss you. We all do. Liam, I was a jerk. I get it now. I'm sorry. Sarah, Mark, I made a terrible mistake. We all did. Can we please just talk?" I read them. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not schadenfreude. It was the absence of feeling. A nerve that had been agitated for years had finally been severed, and the limb was blessedly, peacefully numb. They hadn't lost a father or a husband. They'd lost a utility, and I was no longer for rent. The true victory wasn't in the court documents or their desperate texts. It was in the quiet of my new life. I bought a small, rustic cabin on a patch of land just outside the city limits. It needed work. I needed the work. I spent my weekends not managing other people's lives, but rebuilding my own. I learned to drywall. I laid a new hardwood floor. The blisters on my hands felt like metals. The smell of sawdust and fresh paint was the smell of freedom. I adopted a dog, a goofy, loyal rescue mutt I named Buddy. He didn't care about my past. He was just happy to see me when I came home. One evening, about a year after I'd left, I was in my workshop, sanding down a new table I was building. The sun was setting, casting long orange rays through the dusty windows. Buddy was snoring at my feet. My phone buzzed on the bench. It was Sarah. Again. I let it go to voicemail. I picked up a piece of sandpaper and went back to work, feeling the smooth grain of the wood emerge under my hands. I wasn't building a table. I was building a life, a real one. This time, the foundation was solid. It was built on me. People think walking away is a sign of weakness, that staying and fighting is the noble thing. But I learned the hardest lesson a person can learn. You cannot love people into loving you. You cannot buy your way into a family. And you should never set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially when they'll just complain about the smell of the smoke. Sometimes the strongest, most powerful thing you can do is to simply stop. To stop contributing, to stop engaging, to stop caring in a way that only drains you. Walking away isn't about them. It's about reclaiming the pieces of yourself they've scattered and building something new, something they can never touch. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And sometimes it's earned by having the courage to withdraw it from those who have proven themselves unworthy. So that's my story. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the only way to save myself. I wonder sometimes if they ever truly understood what they lost. But then I look around my quiet cabin, I feel Buddy's head on my knee, and I know I finally found what I was looking for all along. A life that is completely, undeniably my own. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away from something to save yourself? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the bravest word in the world is simply no.